剩女, the idea, I think it's really ridiculous. 剩, it actually means abandoned or like leftover. No, we're not abandoned. We don't want those like not ideal enough men. That's why we are still single.
以前有一个女朋友，本来是要步入婚姻的殿堂，后来为了一点彩礼钱，女方的家里要彩礼要得非常高吧，就这样导致分手了。在农村娶老婆真的不容易，因为农村的现状就是很多单身汉，大龄剩男多得很。
Nico Tang is a 26-year-old Shanghainese bartender and bass player. She is also soon to be what Chinese society would call a shengnu. The term shengnu translates to leftover woman and, by government definition, it refers to any female over the age of 27 who is still unmarried. It's a pervasive term used in traditional sections of Chinese society to try and pressure women into marriage and motherhood.
剩女 is kind of like a very sexist. 80% maybe invented by men. Maybe it's also invented by the government because of the society pressure. So I think they are doing this 剩女 for make you feel like you are some odd one. You are like somebody who is abnormal. And in China society, actually, a lot of people, they are afraid of to be abnormal.
The term shengnu was coined over a decade ago as millennials, a generation of one-child policy children, entered the marriage market. It's used to shame and scare women into thinking that it's better to get married young than become left over. State-run media often lambasts single women for being too picky. The Chinese Communist Party's obsession with marrying off young, single women is driven by the country's falling birth rate. Chinese mothers gave birth to just 12 million babies in 2020, compared to almost 15 million babies in 2019. This is the slowest population growth since the 1961 famine that accompanied Mao's questionable economic and social campaigns. And it indicates that population growth could soon decline. Although media in the country often refer to the falling birth rate as a demographic crisis, it could be more of a psychological problem than an economic one.
China inevitably will click over into demographic stagnation or decline, or population decline at some point in the next 5, 10, 15 years or so. But the relative pace of decline will still be quite slow for a few decades, and the overall impact on the economy is not going to be seen for quite some time. Psychologically, however, it's going to be a little bit difficult to be overtaken by India. This is purely psychological. It's not going to change the geopolitical balance of power in the world. It's not going to mean that the Indian economy is better or greater or stronger than the Chinese economy.
In May 2021, Chinese authorities announced that couples will now be allowed to have up to 3 children, after decades of restrictive reproductive laws. However, an online survey taken after the new rules were announced showed that 90% of respondents said they would not consider having 3 children, for reasons such as cost, as well as the pressure of modern-day life and work.
Well, it's kind of like a pressure which the society is trying to give Chinese women. A lot of people, they experience this when they are young. They still want the freedom and still have their ambition, not ready for the family yet, but their family and the society at that time push them. I know in the Western side it's not like that. Most of my friends and me, we don't really believe in that.
In China, there's also the unique situation of leftover men. These are the excess straight men who are unable to find partners due to the country's gender imbalance as a result of sex-selective abortions during the previous one-child policy. China's gender imbalance is improving, with now around 105 males to every 100 females. But in 2020, there were still 723 million males to 688 million females. This adds up to nearly 35 million more men than women in China. Zhang Bo is a single 31-year-old migrant worker living in Shanghai.
男的话，超过30岁以后不结婚的话，就属于大龄剩男了。因为男的大一点找老婆的话，就说有的可能是因为工作各方面原因吧，结婚迟一点。像女的话，如果说24岁不结婚的话，就说女的那就可能就是眼光很高啊，要么就是很高傲，有这种情况吧。剩男和剩女的这个概念的话，对这些剩男剩女来说是有一点压力。在农村的可能就是说结婚的话，就是说传统接待的话，这是农村的一个习俗吧，就是说你挣不挣到钱都无所谓，但是你结婚生子这是必须的，放在第一位。
This male surplus is most prominent in the rural areas of China, where the least wealthy section of society lives. Here, it's difficult for many bachelors to find brides due to a marriage market malfunction, and many women either marrying up or moving out to the cities.
现在情况的话，就是说大龄剩男的话，现在就是农村的好多，但是像我几个朋友，好几个和关系发小，也就是说发小吧，都是差不多单身的。反正家里小时候农村吧都穷，反正现在都在外面打工，所以说好多男的都结不到婚，要么就是没钱。对，男生在农村里面的结婚的那个竞争性真的很强。
This year, an article published by state-owned Xinhua news agency raised concerns that a lack of finances was preventing many rural men from getting married.
以后的话，想一想在大城市挣一点钱，然后有点本钱了，回老家去做个什么小生意啊，然后在家娶妻生子了。反正结婚的话，必备的就是有车、有房、有存款。如果说没有这三样的话，真的结婚很难的。现在不像以前了。
Although not as stigmatized as leftover women, these leftover men are not forgotten. A recent example of Chinese society pressuring marriage-age millennials to tie the knot is a senior researcher at a government think tank suggesting that leftover men in the countryside should marry leftover women in the city.
专家说这个大龄剩男，培训或者是提升一下本身的，就说各方面呢，比如说穿着啊，或者打扮一下，再学一点技能啊。学点技术啊，然后到大城市里面和这个大龄剩女相亲的话，但是我个人觉得话，我觉得农村的话，大龄剩男的话，那是很希望这个是事实的，但是女方的大龄剩女的话，我估计她有点瞧不起农村的大龄剩男，因为他们毕竟城市里面的条件好一点呗，但是我更偏向农村的女孩。因为农村女孩从小到大，她毕竟吃过苦呗，都知道那个呗。
Unsurprisingly, Shengnu in the city also pushed back on this radical suggestion.
It's really ridiculous. In Chinese, we call it like la lang pei. You just drag one people here, another here. It doesn't work like this. My job and my hobby, it's very normal for me to hang out till even dawn. But if my husband is a rural man, he would just think I'm a slut or something like that. Why you are staying out with a lot of men at so late and drinking? No. Even if I only sit in front of my computer with my instruments trying to compose some songs, he would maybe still think why she's not doing any housework.
This proposal is not government policy and will not be rolled out anytime soon. However, experts point out that matchmaking suggestions, shaming the younger population and relaxing reproductive rules won't immediately raise the birth rate.
Even if there is a significant baby boom as a result of the three-child policy, the reality is, of course, it's not really going to fix anything in the short to medium term because babies don't work, babies don't pay tax. What the government should definitely not do is kind of bully and cajole women into, and say, like, there's something wrong with you, right? Why are you so selfish? Why are you being so individualistic? This doesn't work. It betrays a lack of responsibility for the circumstances that have been created, because part of the reason why we're in this situation in the first place, why the marriage package looks so unappealing for hundreds of millions of women across China, is because of the penalties which occur upon marriage, in terms of the burden of responsibilities, in terms of the household, both for children but also for parents and for parents-in-law. And so unless there's a kind of a cultural switch, then it's hard to see how these characteristics of low fertility rates are going to change.
Look, I'm not cursing anyone, but this really happens. A lot of couples which I saw, they married when they were like 21 or 22. Most of them, they are divorced now. When you are 21, 22, you barely know yourself yet. You barely know what do you want, what do you need yet. So it's not really the right time.